What is going on, y'all? Thank y'all so much for joining us. My name is Chris Hennessy, and this is So I Did a Thing, where I have cool conversations with cool people who are doing cool things. And tonight is no exception. My guest tonight, y'all all know her, y'all all love her. She was one of my original LinkedIn connections. I think I got on LinkedIn in December of 2020, and we connected somewhere like March or April of 21. So we've known each other for a while. Got to meet her a couple of times. We met in Memphis last year whenever Amy Wills did the big thing that she did there. And then Julie was nice enough to drive down for my brother's funeral and see me for that. So needless to say, she's a real good friend of mine. And I'm so excited to join her, or to have her join me, because it has been like 2 years since we've been on a live stream together. So I'm going to bring out Julie Griffin.
Hi, hello. Julie. Hey, what's up? And it was February. It was February of 21.
February of 21. Okay. February of 21. So 2 months after I got on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Very cool. So how are you doing? I'm loving the shirt, by the way.
Gotta represent.
Yeah, right.
For sure.
So you came screaming in here from soccer practice.
I did. I came screaming in from soccer practice. Of all the nights that have logistical issues, like tonight was the night. So yeah, I'm running in and I'm like, oh, my glasses are dirty. And he's like, go clean them. I'm going to play an intro. So I was like, all right, running back in. Time to jam out to your intro. It's perfect.
Right. What's up, Dan Roth? He's over on your side. So is Robin. You're over on your side too. Hi, Julie Griffin, MBO. Hey, Maria, how are you doing? Thanks for dropping in. If y'all are watching, y'all drop a comment. If you're watching on Facebook, drop a comment. If you're watching on LinkedIn, drop a comment, because LinkedIn comments are a little whack. I don't even know what's going on over here.
Okay, there you go. Facebook finally synced up. It was like still playing the intro. I'm like, what are you doing over there? So
maybe it's fine. Check my Facebook.
Maybe you should. It says I've got 4 over there.
Yeah, I've got. Oh, that's yours. Where's mine? I'm doing exactly what I tell people not to do, and be like, oh, at the beginning.
Oh, there's
David Cause is watching on YouTube. So is Amber. Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
Who's LinkedIn user?
I don't know who LinkedIn user.
That's on mine, isn't it?
Cynthia Hilliard. She's watching on my Facebook.
Nice.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Tracy. Tracy's here. She's one of my.
Oh, well, hey, Tracy. She's one of your Working Genius people.
Yes.
Yes. I've forgotten that we invited them to watch.
We did.
Yeah. We got all official with the calendar invite and everything.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. What? Go ahead.
Oh, just LinkedIn comments. Like I refreshed my page and they all disappeared.
Oh, yeah. It's dumb.
Because I was trying to figure out who LinkedIn user is.
Yeah.
I don't know. Tell us your name, LinkedIn user.
Hey, Bobby Stanley, what's going on, man? Good to see you. That's one of my brother's old helpers.
Okay.
Worked with my brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was actually at the funeral.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. So,
Yes. So
what are the 6 types of working genius? Like, just dive into it.
just dive into
I
it.
know
Okay.
your favorite subject.
It really is. Like I was thinking about it on the way home tonight. Cause I think the last time we went live, I think the last time was the joke off. The dad, that sounded really bad. The dad joke contest after the fire. I think was that
Were
the
you
no,
there?
because no.
No, you weren't. You weren't a guest
Yeah.
on that.
I was watching though. Like I was there. I was one of the windows. But no, but when I started live streaming, like you were one of my guests, and that was after that. So
Yeah.
yeah, and that has been 2 years. Okay, you were
Yeah.
right. I was wrong.
Yep.
So okay. All right,
Working
that's fine.
genius.
Working genius. Sorry, yes, back to the topic at hand. Sorry, squirreling out on you. Okay, so the
Okay.
6 types of working genius. So it's an assessment. There's lots of assessments out there like StrengthsFinder and Myers-Briggs and all those things. And they all look at a different layer of who we are, and working genius is another layer of who we are. What sets the working genius assessment apart is that it's 80% productivity, 20% personality. And so it really looks at the work that we do and those types of tasks and activities that bring us energy and joy versus those types of tasks that suck the ever loving life out of us. And I know you and I have had a lot of conversations about those types of things. And I know you've been on some of my live streams, so you've heard this all before.
No. Yeah, but a lot of these other people have not.
I know the other people haven't. And I'm so excited to talk about it with you people. So the 6 types are wonder, invention, discernment, galvanizing, enablement, and tenacity. It does spell widget. And they're all correlated or tied to a stage of work. So all these 6 geniuses are also stages of work, and they're all required to get work done. And they need to happen in this order for best possible results. And now when I say work, that can be anything from like your 8 to 5 day job. That can be planning a family vacation. That could be your volunteer work with your church or community group or whatever it is. Anything you have to get done is considered work, and this applies to it. So the first genius is the genius of wonder. And so people with the genius of wonder start the process. They ask a lot of questions. They look at the environment and they say, why is it like this? Why do we do that? What if we did something else? Are we meeting our or living up to our potential here? They love to just like sit and ponder and think, and they get like energy and joy out of it. And I don't get it at all because that is one of my frustrations. I think about people who love to think, and I think about my dad. So, he's a farmer, and he can sit in the tractor for like 8 hours a day just thinking. Like no radio, no podcast, no books, no phone calls, just thinking, and he loves it. Blows my mind. They're also like 30,000 foot thinkers, so really, really high level. The next genius is a genius of invention. Now, inventors or people with a genius of invention love to create. They take the questions that the wanderer asks and they go, oh, what if we did this? Or what if you did this? They may even say things like, oh, I might have an idea for that. Or please let me come up with a possible solution for that. But they love to come up with ideas and create things a lot of times just out of thin air and out of the blue. And that's what makes it one of the most observable geniuses, in my opinion, because if somebody throws out an amazing idea, you're like, oh my gosh, why didn't I think of that? They might have the genius of invention in that case. Next is a genius of discernment. People with a genius of discernment have really good gut feel and intuition. For them, it's less about data and experience and more about that gut feel and intuition. They can take the ideas of the inventor and be able to, yeah, that's how I am too, Bobby, be able to evaluate them and decide, hey, I think you're on the right track, but maybe you need to think about this. Or holy crap, that's a totally harebrained idea. Scrap that and start over. Oh, hey, Ariel. They also can really provide insight into just knowing if something is going to work or not. And that may not be like, you can't ask them like to prove it because they may not have like the data to back it up. It's just something that they just instinctually know. There's a really important thing that happens between discerners and inventors also. Like I said, the inventor throws out the ideas in this, it's called the ID loop, so invention discernment loop. So the discerner comes in afterwards and provides that assessment of the idea, sends it back to the inventor to tweak, and then it comes back to the discerner and kind of goes back and forth until there's a really solid vetted idea that can move forward. Hey, Rachel, another one of my working genius peeps. Next is the genius of galvanizing. Now, galvanizers are super cool. I love them. Galvanizing is my very lowest genius. So I don't understand it at all, but they are wonderful. Galvanizers like get people moving. They can rally people out of your comfort zone to get something accomplished. They get everybody on the same page, make sure everybody understands, all right, this is what we're doing. This is why it's important. Everybody on board. They break down silos so nobody is duplicating work. As one of my other working genius colleagues says, they have the ability to to change your to-do list. They will move you out of your comfort zone to do something else. And I have a friend of mine who works at another tech center, and she shared with me one time that she was talking to her the whole staff, and there's like 115-ish people, give or take. And she said, "How many of you have I talked into doing something you didn't want to do?" And everybody raised their hands. And sure, a galvanizer. Yes, Jen is a good friend of mine. She's also a galvanizer. Galvanizers are awesome. I love them so much. I don't get it, but I love them. And it takes all types to make the world go round, for sure, especially when it comes to working genius. After galvanizing comes enablement. Enablement is my number one genius by a long ways. People with a genius of enablement love to help people, but it's about more than just helping. Like, we have the ability to like look at a situation, anticipate what's going to be needed, and then provide assistance in the way that it's wanted and desired. Like, more come alongside and do it together versus just take it on and do it ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking when I was learning about the working geniuses and what my geniuses are, and I got to thinking, like, even back when I was a kid, like when I was following around my dad, who's a farmer, he'd be doing mechanic work, and I think, oh, he's going to need a rag soon. His hands are dirty. And I'd be there waiting with a rag when he turns around and goes, hey, I need a, oh, you already have it here. Like, oh, because it's, our geniuses are really who we are on the inside. It's ingrained in us. It's how we're made. So it really, if you look back, like, you can probably pinpoint times in your life when your geniuses have really come out.
Yeah.
And finally, the last genius is the genius of tenacity. People with a genius of tenacity get things done. They get things across the finish line. They have the unique ability to like break down barriers. If there's roadblocks that pop up, like, they will work through them to make sure things get done. They'll make sure everybody is pushing forward toward the same goal, to meet that deadline, to meet the quality requirements. And in a certain situation, they may even say things like, oh, just let me do it. And they'll like take over and just go ahead and do it. So
yeah,
those are the 6: wonder, invention, discernment, galvanizing, enablement, and tenacity. So,
and
you
didn't mention this yet, but everybody also has frustrations.
Yes. So I didn't mention that, of course. So those are the 6. So out of those 6, everybody has 2 geniuses. Your geniuses are the things that bring you that energy, joy, and fulfillment. It comes naturally to you. It lights you on fire. Like, you could do it all day long. If you've had a day where you got home and you were like physically exhausted, but on the inside, you're like, oh my gosh, it was such a good day. I can't wait to do that again. Then you were probably working in your genius. Just which one, Amy? Oh, just move over and let me do it. Tenacity. Yeah. Yes, definitely tenacity. I love that. And that's awesome, because what I always tell people is, when I do this quick overview, like, listen and see if there's one that like you can peg, like, oh, that's me. Because usually there's one that's like, oh, that's totally me. And there's one that's, oh, that's totally not me. And I'd say those are your bookends. Because I already talked about your geniuses. Your competencies are those things that kind of fall in the middle. They're like, they don't really light you on fire and give you energy and joy. They don't really drain you. They're just kind of like, meh, they're okay. And that's really how I kind of describe it. Just meh. Hey, Blair. And then
I'm
your
playing.
frustrations are the things that suck the ever-loving life out of you. Like you would either rather eat hot coals or walk on Legos barefoot than to do those types of activities. Like you'd actually
Mhm.
feel the life being sucked out of you when you do them. That's
Mhm.
not to say that just because something falls in your frustration that you can't or shouldn't do it. It just means you have to know that type of activity isn't going to bring you energy and joy. So wonder and galvanizing are my two frustrations. So I don't enjoy it. I'm not really good at it. I can do it because every job is a 6-letter job. So we're going to have to do work outside of our geniuses at some point in
Right.
time. But knowing this type of activity, this isn't going to bring me joy, then you can be like, all right, I can do this for this long, get it done, and then move on to the next thing. I don't have to live in that frustration.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. Thank you for reminding me that I hadn't clarified what our geniuses' competencies and frustrations are.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting because I don't even remember what mine were. You probably do, or you
I
could pull
do.
it up real quick.
You're a discerment and enablement.
Are my two geniuses?
Those are your two geniuses.
Okay.
I don't
You remember
remember
what
what
my
your frustrations
were?
No, I sent it to you in Slack not too long ago, but I can pull
Yeah,
it up
but
really
that was,
quick.
I
A
don't
while
remember what
back.
they were.
I
Yeah,
don't
a
either.
while back.
But yes,
But I
discernment and
remember,
enablement are your two geniuses.
but I remember when I took the evaluation is when you were going through the training to become a certified facilitator, and you needed some people
Yes.
to do it, and just how interesting it was to get the results back and be like, oh my goodness, that is me to a T.
Yeah, you were one of my guinea pigs. Chris Henny said, so your enablement and discernment. So enablement first, discernment second, then tenacity, wonder, invention, and galvanizing. So we share galvanizing as a frustration.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't ask me to
Yeah.
go
And
get
I
people
can see
rallied.
invention because I have a hard time sometimes getting the ball rolling.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, oh, and I will sit here and like whenever I'm writing even campaign emails,
Yeah.
I will sit here and stare at that Google Doc, that blinking cursor,
Mm-hmm.
trying to come up with something, a new way to say something that I've already said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
probably once you get started, you can do it because
most of
I
the
mean you
time, yep.
may throw out some bad ideas, but then your discernment kicks in. You're like, oh, I can refine this, I can make this work and actually get it done. So
Yep. So tell us why. I told today you were a visionary, but no ball rolling. Uh, that's the case with a lot of people. Like they have the big vision, but they don't have or they may have it, but it's not their forte
Yeah.
to start getting everything going.
Yep. To
And
get
that's why you need a
actually,
team.
that's why exactly why you need a team because you can have like you can do all the things because like I said, we can do every job is a 6-letter job. You can do them, but when it comes naturally and it like gives you energy, you're going to be better at it. You're going to enjoy it because it just comes naturally. There's I mean, there's all sorts of different combinations of geniuses
Right.
of like, and I say combination, that's like your genius pairing. Like you're an E and a D and I'm a E and an I. And I have the stats on like what the most common pairing is an E and a T. So enablement and tenacity, like the come alongside and get her doners. But there's a lot of people who don't have tenacity or have tenacity as a frustration. And so for them, it's even more important that they have a team of people that can help them get across the finish line. So I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but the Working Genius Assessment was developed by the Table Group and Pat Lencioni. And two of his two frustrations are enablement and tenacity. Well, he writes a lot of books, and so he even says this all the time, is like it's really important for him to have an editor who comes alongside him and pushes him to actually get the thing done because that tenacity piece is so counterintuitive for him.
So you do this training a lot through your current role at Central Tech.
Meridian.
Meridian, my bad. Meridian, definitely
Yes.
not Central. Meridian.
Yes, Meridian. Yes,
My
I'm at
bad.
Meridian Technology Center in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And so,
Stillwater,
yeah, I
Oklahoma.
became certified through my role, and so I do training through them. Our primary like service area, because each of the technology centers in Oklahoma has like a district that we serve, and so it's portions of Payne County, Lincoln County, Logan County, Noble County. I don't remember what other counties that we serve, but that area. But I can also travel beyond that, given the need that's there.
Yeah.
So
So tell us why it's important, because you do a lot of team trainings with groups of anywhere from 5 to 25.
yes.
So tell us why it's important in a team setting
Okay.
to know your geniuses and frustrations and competencies when you're working with people.
Yeah, of course. Especially in a team setting, it's important because you can probably understand or you have experience where some people enjoy certain tasks more than others. And when you're doing work that falls in your genius, I mean, obviously, it's just natural. You're going to enjoy your work more. So if everybody in a perfect world, everybody's primary roles would fit like within their geniuses, right? That doesn't happen.
Right.
However, once you know what people's geniuses are, if there is the ability to kind of shuffle some roles or responsibilities, you can better align the work based on people's geniuses. The other thing too is you know where you may need to make what is that? Is that English?
Negative, Ghost Rider.
I didn't think so.
No, it's not. It's
Okay.
not. So we had bad weather here yesterday.
Oh yeah.
So the cleaning crew did not come last night.
So they're here now. Okay. It's fine.
Listening to stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fine.
We're gonna roll with it.
We're gonna roll with it.
I was like, what is that noise?
I know. It's like, I don't have anything happening here. It's all
Well,
good.
I know what clips we're not going to use for.
Right. For sure.
Anyway, so
teams, yes. So when you know what everybody's geniuses are, you can align that work as best as you can. And you know where you may need to depend on somebody's competencies, which you don't want to do a lot, but you can if you need to. So when it comes to big teams, like teams of 25, there's this thing called a team map. And so it's all everybody's geniuses mapped out in the six areas with your geniuses on one side and your frustrations on the other. And when you put all 25 on a map, you're like, oh, we've got all the areas covered. Well, how many teams do you know, like functional teams that are actually that big? There's not a lot. Like you don't work in that big of a team. You usually have pockets of like 4 to 7-ish, probably. And so you take that big group and you're like, oh, we're pretty good. And then you bust them out into your small groups. And I do this exercise where I give them a blank map at their table and they fill it in. And they're like, oh, all of a sudden we have no invention or galvanizing. And then that allows me to say, all right, now how does that affect the way you do projects? Think about a past project that maybe didn't go so well. Is that because this genius was missing? Okay, knowing what you know now, how can you change that or change your process moving forward so that you don't run into those same issues or don't have those blind spots or traps where you don't have geniuses that can sometimes derail you.
Yeah.
So it's really like, the awareness piece is huge because once you understand who you are and why you are the way you are, that helps you also look at other people and understand why they are the way they are. And that's one of the great things about working genius is this whole concept of like releasing or alleviating guilt and judgment, like especially with galvanizing. Like in a previous role, I had to do a lot of galvanizing and I was terrible at it. And I was always like, why can't I do this? I see other people rally people and get them moving all the time. Why can't I? What's wrong with me? Well, now I know there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just not wired for that type of activity. On the other hand, too, is if somebody who maybe doesn't have tenacity or doesn't have whatever genius it is, if they can't do the thing, usually like with tenacity, if they don't like to finish things, they can sometimes be thought of as lazy. They're not lazy. They're just not wired to have that drive to push things across the finish line. And
Mm-hmm.
so it helps you understand yourself better and not feel guilty for not being able to do the things that are hard for you, and have a little more grace for others when maybe they don't think the same way you do, or come
Mm-hmm.
alongside or rally people or whatever it is. Um, it just allows, less guilt for ourselves and less judgment for others. And I think
Yeah.
anytime you're on a team and you can have that clarity, I mean, that just helps build trust. When you have trust, like, everything's better.
Yeah, for sure. And I can imagine, like it just like you said, once you lay it out on the roadmap and you're like,
Mm.
oh, we're missing people with these
Yes.
geniuses. Maybe that's why we're hitting the roadblocks.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have any, like, has anybody come back later and been like, hey, we made some adjustments to our team map. We have this now, and now we're plowing through the
I
roadblocks.
I haven't had that happen yet. Usually, the teams that I work with, there's no shortage of enablement or tenacity on them.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the last two groups I did, one was a group of 27 and one was a group of 22. And like 60% of the people had either enablement or tenacity as a genius. And so there was plenty of that to go around.
Yeah.
I have had teams that talk about, all right, how can we use this now in our hiring practices, and being able to write those job descriptions in a way that really resonates with the type of genius person that they want.
Mm-hmm.
Pat and his team say, scare them with sincerity. So when you write your
Mm-hmm.
job description, use the language that will resonate with somebody with that genius and will like almost repel somebody who doesn't have that genius. Because I know
Mm-hmm.
if I read a job description and it screamed galvanizer to me, like, I would run away. And that's really,
Right.
it's really a service for both parties, for the person hiring and for the person being hired.
Right. For sure. LinkedIn comments are Chris is a narcissist. How would you fix that? Ha 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 ha.
Ha ha ha. And I can't even reply to him because they're not showing up over here.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Tenacity, that's on my side, and that comment is not showing up on my LinkedIn, so I have no idea who that is. Dadgummit. Ah, Shannon Nelson. Hey, Shannon.
Oh, Shannon. Yay.
Yes.
Yay.
All right. LinkedIn
Back on
comments,
track.
man. Back on track.
They need to fix that. Like, it's been an
I
issue for a
know.
while.
For months. All right. So a tool for recruitment.
Tool for recruitment. Yes, Tracy. So I think you can absolutely use it as a tool for recruitment. One, I think anytime that you can, I mean, healthy organizations are going to attract good people, right? And so, and you're probably offering me an idea versus a question because you're also a certified facilitator. But like, when you have a company that's healthy, like, you're going to attract good people. And when you have a healthy team, like, you're going to retain those people as well. So I think it absolutely is a recruitment and retention tool, because when people are understood and know that they are valued to who they are and what they bring to the table, and that, the leader of the team understands what their own geniuses are and frustrations and is willing to let people fill in the gaps for them, then like, it's just healthier all the way around. And when you have that, like, people aren't going to want to leave, because, when people feel, valued and heard and trusted, like, that's how you keep good people.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. And that's what she said about retention too, recruitment and retention.
Mm-hmm. Yep, for sure.
That's a whole conversation I want to have with someone, because that doesn't even bring me joy. If LinkedIn is building their own streaming software. Oh, that's going to put a damper on things.
Yes, it will.
Yes, for exactly, sure, Tracy.
Oh, yeah. So much grace to fail. For sure. And I think that's one of the great things about understanding, especially people who have the genius of invention. Like, they just want to try it. It's like, well, here's an idea. Let's try it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, then back to the drawing board. And having, an environment where that is acceptable and or encouraged is so awesome. So awesome.
Yep. So what else about Working Genius?
Oh, so many things. So let's talk about craves and crushes, because that's one of the things that on my feedback forms from every session consistently gets written down or noted as one of the best things about the session. So every genius has a crave and a crush. So when I say crave, it's exactly what it sounds like, something that you need more of to help fuel you for that genius. Your crush is the flip side of that coin. It's those things that will squash you or let the air out of your balloon or whatever it is.
Right.
So the importance of knowing that is it's just another nuance of knowing yourself and those around you. Because obviously, if you're working with somebody, you want to make sure that they know that they're, appreciated and encourage them. And you want to do things to help keep them happy, for lack of a better term. So when you can really kind of touch those buttons of the craves, that helps keep them going, helps give them energy to keep going. So people with the genius of wonder, they crave consideration because they are such high-level thinkers and ask a lot of questions. Some people don't like it when people ask a lot of questions.
Right.
And so people with the genius of wonder crave consideration. They want to know that the questions they're asking are valued. Oh, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. Or, oh my gosh, I've never thought of that before. We should think about that more. As opposed to, being dismissed or being said, we don't have time for that. That's what crushes people with a genius of wonder. People with a genius of invention crave freedom. They just want the ability to create without parameters. They say what crushes inventors is being put in a box and not having the freedom to create. I have noticed, because invention is one of my geniuses, that I don't know if it's because it's paired with enablement. So usually when I'm inventing and creating, it's out of that enablement genius, usually for somebody else. I can't create something for myself to save my life, but do it for somebody else. I'm all in. But for me, having those boundaries and parameters is more of I like those guide rails. So for me, that doesn't crush me, but for others, I think maybe who have invention is a way higher genius, they might be. And so when I say higher genius, it's a ranking, not a rating. So everybody has these 6 geniuses. And I always say, think about chocolate. If you had 6 pieces of chocolate and you had to rank them, you would have a number 1, you'd have a number 6. And so for me, I think of our genius is on a continuum. And so if you have genius way over here on the left and frustration way over here on the right, you can move them around. So for me, enablement is way high genius. And then you come down a little further and you probably have invention and tenacity pretty close together. Discernment's hanging out over here. Wonder's closer to frustration, and galvanizing is the furthest you can get to frustration. And so they're on this continuum, but there's no set place on there. And the space between those geniuses may be different. I mean, I'm sure they are different for each individual. It's just a matter of understanding yourself and knowing where you're at on the continuum. And so for me, with invention as my second genius and down a little further, those parameters don't necessarily bother me like they would with somebody who maybe has invention that's off the charts, if that makes sense. Discernment, they crave trust because their genius is more about that gut feel and intuition versus data. So if you go to somebody with a genius of discernment and you say, hey, what do you think of this? And they give you your opinion or give you an answer for you to say, okay, I trust you. That fuels them versus saying, we'll prove it. And as somebody with the genius of discernment, what do you think on that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Prove it. Yeah. That was even brought up whenever I got recently moved back into a sales position. And my boss was like, man, you always just shoot holes in ideas. And I'm like, I'm not really shooting holes though. I'm just, I see all the ways y'all are throwing stuff out there and I'm seeing all the ways that this may not work.
Yep.
Doesn't mean I'm not going to support you in getting this thing moving. It just means I see the holes.
Yes, exactly. And that is a great example of discernment. A lot of people say, like, oh, they're such a Debbie Downer. But like, no, they're not. They just have the ability to see how things may or may not work. So that's a great example.
No. Hey, Randy, you are late. You're usually like the first one in the comments.
Hi, Randy. I would say hi to you back on LinkedIn, but it's not showing up. It's fine.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Whatever.
So that's WID. So galvanizers, they crave reaction. And every single galvanizer I've talked to has said yes. Like either like, okay, agree with me, argue with me if you have to, just give me something, some sort of reaction. That's what they crave. Like being apathetic or just like, all right, whatever. Like that's what crushes galvanizers because they're just putting their heart and soul into this thing. And then like first to get no reaction at all, they're like, huh.
Yeah.
Enablement craves appreciation. For me, I even say just being noticed. That like the work that we're doing is, noticed and appreciated versus just being overlooked. Like overlooked or forgotten is what crushes people with the genius of enablement. And I feel that to the nth degree. And then tenacity craves clarity. They want to know what good looks like, what done looks like, what does success look like. Give me what I'm working towards. Tell me what you want, and then give me free reign to do it how I want to do it. Like ambiguity is what craves or crushes people with tenacity. If you just say, oh, whenever you get it done is fine. Like whatever you want is fine. That's what crushes them. And I always ask people in my sessions, I say, okay, especially you guys with the genius of tenacity. If I give you something without a deadline, when is the deadline? And 90% of the time people say, oh, right now. Like they will do it immediately. And I'm like, okay, that is one of the differentiating factors between those of you with tenacity and those of you without tenacity. Because if you give me something without a deadline, the deadline is never. It will never get done. Never, ever. Unless you put a deadline with it. The other really important thing about craves and crushes is they're really important for our geniuses. But when you're working outside of your genius, they're even more important because they're amplified. And when I first read that, I was like, what? But it makes sense because you're having to dig so much deeper to do something that doesn't come naturally. Those craves and crushes are even more important. And when it comes to teams, like if you know your teammate is working in their frustration, like make sure you're doing the things that genius craves because they're going to need it even more to keep going through that work that sucks the life out of them.
Yeah. I love it. Very, very interesting stuff. And like, I'm not usually one on any of the personality stuff. I like that kind of stuff. I'm just like, whatever. But this has always been pretty interesting to me.
Well, and it's so simple. Like there's only 6. And so it's like it's widget. Like you can remember widget. And it's so applicable. Like even if you haven't read the book or done the assessment, just in a conversation, I can probably peg what your geniuses are pretty easily. At least your number 1, top 1, and your very lowest frustration. Like, and then the middle, you can kind of shuffle around and figure it out. But based on like patterns and conversations, like I can figure it out usually pretty easily. And then you have that like aha moment that's like, oh, that makes sense for why I am the way I am.
Right.
So
cool.
I mean, and all of the assessments like have their place. Like I said earlier, they all look at a different layer of who we are. Like, hey, out, please.
Can I go up to Mother Nick Kitty's
Yeah,
house?
you can go. Take the 4-wheeler if you want.
The last thing you said to her was, Morgan, I'm going live. Don't come in here.
I know. Hey, but at least she came in and asked before she just left because I would have seen her either walk past these front windows or take off on the 4-wheeler. And I've been like, where are you going? So,
hey,
fine.
Holly, my one Twitch fan, the one person that watches me on Twitch. Yes. She's the only reason I still stream to Twitch.
Yeah. Hey, all it takes is one.
Right? Yeah, I know, right?
It takes is one. What was I saying? I totally lost my train of thought. The different layers of who we are. So like, the movie Shrek, like they say ogres are like onions. We have layers. Like people are onions. People are onions. Yeah. We have layers too. And so a lot of people are familiar with StrengthsFinder, which has been around for years and years and years. And I really want to eventually get to a point where I dig deeper into our geniuses and how they overlap with our strengths and how they influence how we show up. So how
Mhm.
somebody like me with the geniuses of enablement and invention with these 5 strengths, how I show up versus somebody with enablement invention and these 5 strengths, and kind of what those
Mhm.
nuances are based on those layers. So it's cool.
That's deep. That's deep stuff
I
right
love
there.
it.
So obviously, like if somebody wanted you to come do working genius training, they would have to be inside of Meridian Tech's.
No, I can go out of district. I can go out of
Like
district.
state?
I actually did a proposal for a guy in Wisconsin last year.
No
So
kidding.
it ended up not working out, but yeah, I
Okay.
will travel.
Okay.
So we can make it work.
For sure.
Yes. So
I'm glad you had some of your working genius peeps drop in too. That was cool.
I know. I'm so excited. I didn't even like put a reminder in our group or anything. Today
I
was
know,
so
and I
crazy.
meant to. I
Yeah.
thought about it.
But hey, it's all right. The
Yep.
calendar invite was a good idea. That's probably why they're here.
Yeah, Kyle, that was a good idea on Kyle's part.
Yes, for sure.
Oh. Well,
So,
Julie, thank you so much for hanging out.
Of
This
course.
has been
Thanks for
so
having
interesting.
me.
Like I've heard bits and pieces of this from you here and there,
Mhm.
but
That
never.
was
I don't know
handy.
that I've actually heard it all, top to bottom, front to back, in
Mhm.
one sitting.
Yeah.
And obviously, this is a very condensed version because you do 3-hour
Mhm.
trainings on this.
Yeah, I'd say the majority of the trainings I do and what I'm pushing for moving forward are 3 hours. I'm probably going to start pushing them to 4 just based on the feedback that I've had and the experience I've had with the groups that I've done. Because a lot of the value comes in the conversations and the exercises that the
Mhm.
participants do together.
Mhm.
And really, like that first 60 minutes is just me kind of talking and sharing to have the baseline information and understanding of what we're going to talk about later. And
Mhm.
so there's a lot of value in those conversations that happen and saying like, oh, we share the same genius, but we show up to work completely different. Let's talk about why. Or
Mhm.
you look at somebody next to you and you're like, oh, that's why you act like that. I'm like, okay, that makes a
That's
lot
why
of
you
sense.
are the way that you are.
That's why you are the way you are.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I'd say the shortest session that I would want to do is like a 90-minute. I did one for an internal group the other day and that went by so fast. And it was really like just enough to like scratch the surface and like make you want more.
Mhm.
But really it can be customized for whatever you want. I've got a training booked in June with a leadership team that'll be basically an all-day deal. So
Very cool.
we can make it whatever you need.
Yeah.
And
I love
there's
it.
all sorts of like, uses for it, like to make meetings better, to make conversations better, to make hiring better. Like there's all sorts of things.
Yeah. Very, very, very cool. Next week, I have to ask her again before we go live to make sure I pronounce her name right, but I think it's not Nizia Martinez. Somebody that was a guest on Ending the Stigma like 2 years ago, pointed her my direction or something. And she really has a heart for working with the youth and youth in the streets. And she's written a book and done some stuff. And she reached out to me on YouTube and was like, hey, I'd really love to be a guest on your live stream. So I had a Zoom call with her. Lovely, lovely person. So I'm looking forward to sitting down and listening to what God is doing in her life and how God is using her. So that is going to be
Very good.
really cool. Yep.
You always have the coolest guests.
I do. Tonight included.
Thank you.
Except for that Dan Roth guy. That guy was a little weird.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding,
People
Dan.
out
I'm
there.
just kidding. I had a blast with you. I laughed my butt off. It was fun.
Yeah.
Anything else before we bounce out of here?
I mean, you give me an opportunity to talk and I will talk forever.
Okay, we
I
can-
will be going live on Friday for my
Oh yeah,
Meridian
that's
job.
right.
I'll be
That's
going
right.
live on Friday with Amy Haar. We're going to talk about training and development and things like that. And then next Monday at noon, I'll be live with some of my Working Genius peeps. I I think we're going to focus on hiring. I don't remember for sure, but if you want to know more about Working Genius, catch me next Monday at noon.
Produced by Hit Productions.
That's right.
Gotta
Driving the bus.
get that plug in. Yeah, Darren, including you, man. I need to
Yes,
get Darren
Darren.
back on because he's doing cool things.
Yes, he is. I saw his post the other day. Like, so cool.
How cool is it to go from a TDCJ warden to a criminal defense attorney?
Right? I love
know,
it.
I just
Talk
love
about
it.
full
I do
circle.
too. Full circle, man.
Yes.
All right, y'all. Y'all have a good evening. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see
Yes.
y'all
Thanks
next
for being
week
here.
at the same time.
All right. See y'all.